Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and we got a real special program for you. We have in the house the man from the River City Reader, Todd McGreevy. Todd, how are you, sir?
Greetings, Jason. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Yes, very exciting to have you on. And the reason I wanted to have you on is, we've been part of this group, and I know that you've been part of this area forever, fighting back against big government, establishment infringement on rights, and we've never seen more of those rights infringed upon than right now. And that is a very, very large reality. And we've been meeting with a lot of people. Recently, our friend Scott gave to the Scott County Board.
Matt.
Jesus. See, no, you're right. You got me. Our friend Matt. I thought the same thing as it happened. Our friend Matt went before the Scott County Board and gave them this declaration. And basically, it's pretty common sense, right? It's not revolutionary. It's something that is really on the books, but holds these people accountable. And it's the first time we've had them in person in quite some time. So, before we get into all that and what the declaration is, tell people how you got started, how they can find your work, where that is, and why this is of interest and of the utmost importance right now.
River Cities Reader, rcreader.com is our website. My wife Kathleen and I have been publishing that since 1993. Independent media here in the Quad Cities, the Iowa, Illinois bi-state region, if you will. And, our role has been to protect the Bill of Rights. We're big advocates of the Bill of Rights and protecting people's freedoms. It's a combination of, business, arts, politics, and culture. Those are our ballywick, if you will. So you can find out what's going on in the region. We're the key to the Quad Cities culture. But we also have commentary and articles that you will not find in the mainstream press. We try to hold people accountable locally, if you will. And in the advent of this pandemic, which rolled out last year, my wife Kathleen did a deep dive on all the research out there. I mean, there's a lot of people a lot of people you've had on your show. The gentleman who does The Last American Vagabond is Kathleen listens to that all the time and gets all kinds of great resources and links from his show.
Ryan Christian, Ryan Christian, really amazing guy, and he's brought so many other amazing people out there. Yeah. And I just do want to remind you, Todd, that we are on Gestapo Vision.
Oh yes,
yes. And no, not that we can't talk about any of these things, but I know how slick it is. I want to let people know, however, that we're going to do hopefully almost an hour, if not an hour, with you, Todd.
Cool.
And basically, the way we're doing it is, folks, there's this story right here that is breaking. That is not going to be in the mainstream, that we can't talk about here. And this has to do with Elmhurst Hospital, a treatment that is not something we can talk about, but we're going to talk about it on the other side. And this is about so much importance. And finally, that took almost a month. We've been talking about that. Yeah. So, there's going to be a lot we can talk about, and that's how to challenge these people, how to, basically not exert force, but our influence, and say, hey, you work for us, and these federal mandates based on color of law that are oppressing all of us aren't going to stand. So speak to that. You've been fighting this fight for a long time.
And the Reader is a platform that gave us the foundation, if you will, to pay attention to holding local government accountable. What we've learned over the years is, all things that matter the most are local, because we're led to believe that the big circus, the big fight, the big left versus right, red versus blue at the federal level is what's most important in our lives. When what we're going to see Matt Shaw explain brings it home that no, we should have more control here locally over our lives. We've been advocating that for years in the River Cities Reader, for years. The organizations like Super Liberty, Iowans for Accountability here in the Quad Cities area. There was, when the Tea Party started coming up extemporaneously in the Quad Cities, we were part of that. I've been to what was the Wall Street?
Occupy Wall Street.
I remember when Occupy Wall Street came to the Quad Cities. I went to those meetings and met with those people as well. Eventually, people start realizing, gosh, we better do something locally here if we're going to have any control of our lives and maintain the liberties that we prize, which is what's in the Iowa flag. that includes, I mean, we've talked about it before, that includes knowing who your county sheriff is, knowing who your county supervisors are, knowing who your local chief of police is, knowing when the grand jury is convened in your county and who is on the grand jury. That should be information that should be at your fingertips. We try and make that happen here in the Quad Cities. Because heaven forbid we need to call on a grand jury to bring allegations of wrongdoing against a publicly sworn officer. That's one of the duties of the grand juries in 99 Iowa counties. These are the things, it's called the watchers watching the watchers. And that's really what we're trying to do. Preventative maintenance is what we're trying to do. We don't want to have confrontation and have adversarial relationships with our government. We want them to behave properly. We want them to follow their oath of office. We want them to do what they said they were going to do when they took that job. That is the contract that they signed up for, and that includes upholding the Constitution, as you will see Matt brings up in this segment. So it was just so you know, I was thrilled that when you came to town, Jason, another info warrior, if you will, in the room is phenomenal to have. It gives everybody a shot in the arm. Can I say that on YouTube?
Can you? I don't know.
And then people like Matt, who's new. I mean, I say this not facetiously. This pandemic has been a real shot in the arm to the liberty movement. It's woken people up. It is awakened the sleeping mama bears, as we've seen, as you've had on your show. It is made people pay more attention.
And they went local, and that's the big thing. They went local,
right.
And it went throughout the whole state.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so sick of people saying you can't have an effect. You start locally, and then in very short order sometimes, it does affect a wider variety of things, right? And that's why we're all in this together. And that's the thing. It's not alone together. It's not a new normal. The new normal is you have to get off your ass.
That's right.
And fight these people tooth and nail. And, again, I believe this was the first session that they were back. He had this all written up. Me and Pat were in attendance, but, I'm going to be on the road the next couple of weeks. But in the next meetings, hopefully we're going to have more people come up.
We will.
Say, have you read this? Each give a spiel why. And one of those reasons is going to be something we're going to talk about a little later, And I had those conversations with at least one of the gentlemen who came out and talked to us. And like you've said, and like we've discussed in our groups, they're not used to people just showing up out of the blue. They're not used to people just sitting there and stating something unless they're looking for a permit or they're looking for zoning.
They're not used to people who aren't on the agenda item that have been completely scripted as to what will happen in the room.
That is exactly right. And that is something that we can use, and when I say we, I mean the general civilian populace, to our advantage once we organize correctly. And I think once they realize, hey, wow, 5 people showed up this time, 10 people showed up this time, they all want the same thing. When it's 200 people and all of a sudden the stickers come off the floor and it's all right, we'll stand together, we feel okay, we don't need the social distancing. All of a sudden, it might go over that edge and things can start to change and the tide can turn in the right direction. Because I know that you and I have seen nothing but the wrong direction right now for a large period of time. And listen, the wins we got, in my opinion, were just small, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, a big win for me was moving to Iowa because of the stark difference between here and New York. So before we play this, and we're about to play this, set this up for us. Explain what the Scott County Board does, why this is important, and what this document contains.
Yeah, good. The county board is, we've called it over the years the shadow government in the Quad Cities. Most people don't even know the county board exists. They don't even know about it. That I couldn't name one of their supervisors if they had to. In Iowa, there's 99 counties. We assert that wherever you live, you should really pay attention to your county supervisors very closely. In Iowa, they're responsible for the budget of the sheriff, the budget of the auditor, the budget of the courts, the budget of the jail, the budget of the mental health, the budget of county roads, and probably thinking of missing a couple of things, but predominantly they are fiscal managers of the county operations, in which multiple cities also operate with municipal charters. And the county has, in Iowa, it's county home rule, which I will point out to you and your listeners, Jason, that recently there has been some controversy when the Zuckerberg-funded Foundation Center for Technical and Civic Life, CTCL, put hundreds of millions of dollars into the November election last year. Do you remember that whole thing?
Well, it's starting to come out more and more. These guys all funded the fortifying of the election on the Biden side.
Because of COVID, you know. And so when that happened, we wrote about that in the River Cities Reader. You can go check it out closely there. CTCL, Center for Civic and Technical Life. They funded the county election. I'll never forget it. I was watching the September county meeting when Roxana Moritz, who I know very well, county auditor, said out loud, "I have everything I need to have a safe and fair election," because the supervisors were actually trying to supervise, and asked her, "Do you have everything you need with social distancing and masks and all that happy horse, you know what, for this?" And she said, "I have everything I need." And then it was the day after she said that to their faces that she filed for an application for $400,000 from the Zuckerberg-funded foundation. That came to a head at this board of supervisors, and unbeknownst to many of us, the board policy that they could change if they chose to do so, which might be something else we want to add to the mix here, but is that the auditor can take private money from a private source for a publicly funded election and does not have to get approval from the board of supervisors. That was like an esoteric little loophole that she had. Well, people like Diane Holst and Mike Angelos joined with the Amistad group out of Chicago to thwart this. They filed lawsuits along with people in Wisconsin and Michigan and all over, and filed one in Iowa. It was brought to a head, and the judge ruled that, no, you know what? The auditor in the county is well within her purview, because one of the arguments against it was that funds that come to the election in Iowa must go through the state, and the state legislature must divvy out those funds and govern the spending of those funds for elections. That was the argument against it. And the response was, no, in Iowa there's county home rule. She can do what she wants in the county. You county can do stuff outside of the state. So that sword needs to cut both ways, is what I'm trying to say. And that's what Matt is trying to bring to a head, is that you're in charge of this county. You're gonna ride over the state's mandate about the way that they fund elections when you choose, but then when it comes time for shutting down churches and playgrounds, you're going to go, oh, we got to do what the state says. So which one is it? Let's focus on running our own county where we live. Self-determination isn't for everybody. It's been one of my mottos I've said many times, but it should be for us here in Scott County. So the county board meets every 2 weeks. They have what's called a committee of the whole, and then on a Tuesday, and then they have the board meeting on a Thursday, I believe are the dates. And the committee of the whole is where the sausage is made, really. You know, that's where they kind of iron out what's on the agenda, ask questions if they actually choose to supervise versus rubber stamp, which has been our experience. They're nothing but rubber stampers of what the staff, highly paid staff, tells them to do. But then in the committee of the whole is when they size up what they're going to do, and then at the regular board meeting, they typically just gavel everything. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. So when they meet, nobody really comes to the meetings other than if you're on the agenda. The public doesn't come. Many people have seen on the local news when there's something controversial at the city. A lot of people come to a city council meeting, over something to do with the police or something to do with zoning, or the city council meetings are well attended. County meetings, you could fire a cannon off in these places. So when people show up, they pay attention. So was it? And I couldn't make it that evening, and I was kind of on the fence, because you know what? Frankly, these guys know me really well, and so when they see me coming, they kind of know what they're going to get, and that I'm not as traumatic to them as the unknown. And that's what I said to you guys. This is trauma. This system needs trauma. So you guys coming down there as unknown people, who are those dudes sitting there? I've never seen that guy before. That's traumatic. I love it. They need more trauma. So the more people that come down that don't know these guys, the better. And was it just you three?
Yeah, it was just us three. Yeah. And we were actually there before Matt. And, we'll let it go from here, because I think Matt does a great description. But you're right. And it's so weird. So, Todd, I've never had this happen before. So this has a clean HDMI out, right? But your face, the facial recognition kicked up on this, and like the little square box is going through, and my comments are going crazy. So we're going to try to fix it. I don't know if it's going to be a restart. We're doing a lot of secondhand equipment here, guys.
Wow.
But it was so bizarre.
Last time I was here, the equipment was messed up.
I've never had that happen where the square box goes. And I've done, so many with Pat, and, never seen it.
So let me set something else up real quick, too, just before you play
go
this.
ahead.
And at city council meetings, at least in Iowa and in Illinois, there's typically on the agenda public with business. It's an item that's on the agenda where who wants to say something, right? Mm-hmm. In Scott County, there is no public with business on the agenda. And so this is a nuance that I was trying to help Matt with, and you guys, that, these people are, while I think that they don't follow the Bill of Rights like they should, they're also fairly courteous. And so if somebody's there that wants to speak, if they're being polite, and I would advise your listeners, if you're going to get involved at your county board meetings or your school board meeting, assert yourself politely. Be there, be present, and if they, raise your hand, ma'am, I still haven't make a comment. I think I need 2 minutes of your time, please. Let me talk. And what are they going to? If they don't let you talk, it looks even worse.
Exactly. Kill them with kindness,
yes,
guys.
Exactly.
So mics are going to stay hot. If you want to add anything, do so. But we're going to start playing this bad boy. This is how it's done, folks. This is a Matt before the Scott County Board.
To you, but instead summarize and tell you why we're here. Thank you for letting us come. We appreciate the board, and we appreciate that Scott County and Iowa have been one of the best places to live over the last 18 months. But you guys are elected to defend our liberties, to make sure that we are not encroached upon. And I want to make sure that this never happens again. To take my kids to a public playground and have it be closed by a police officer for no good reason is shameful. And that's just one example we could give. To all the things that were closed, the lives that had to put up with, what we took for granted, snuffed out by an abuse of the emergency management section in the public health department of the state of Iowa. I'm looking at the county home rule or a modification or an adaptation of it. And what we've had is, at the governor's level, a complete abuse of emergency declarations perpetually extended over and over, long after we've all been made aware of what's happening. We were all aware of coronavirus, all aware of the risks long afterward. What I've written here is to be adopted in Scott County that we would take ownership of this. We're not going to shut down our state, infringe on our liberties, close our churches, kick people out of their schools, unless you say so, because you represent us. You 5 people should take authority over this county and rein in any outside influence that says we're going to stop our lives just because the governor said so. The governor never went to the legislature, but just one day, along with all the other governors, decided a whole slate of things. And you guys never said, not in Scott County. And so this is our chance. Next time this happens, because it will, something's going to come along for the benefit of the public health, for the benefit of the public. We ought to have the right to say in our county, we will not participate unless we choose to. It's not a complete rejection of the state. It's concurrence with the state if you 5 decide so. What I've written here is essentially a never again declaration to be adopted so that we control Scott County, which is one of the finest places to live. But we can only make it better by refusing to participate in the closing of playgrounds and the shutting of churches and the closing down of all the things that we could list unless we concur. And we should be able to concur. And that's exactly what I've written here. To be reviewed and then adopted here in Scott County because you represent us, but not just our will, but to protect us from those who want to infringe upon us. And I'll highlight here that what distinguishes the United States, and I want to say Scott County, because I don't believe that we're going to influence the nation, but we can influence our county for the greater good. What differentiates us from other supposed democracies is our rights come from God, not government. And these rights are fully sustained in times of war, as well as peace, sickness or wellness, scarcity, or in prosperity. Federal law prohibits anyone from using law, statute, ordinance, or regulation to deprive any person of rights, privileges, or immunities secured by the protection of the Constitution. That's in the United States Code, Title 18. The Supreme Court has said no right is held more sacred or more carefully guarded by the common law than the right of every individual to possess control of his or her own person, free of all restraint or interference of others.
I love the fact that he brought up Title 18. You know, if you've gone to a college campus in the last 2 years and gone to the public restroom at a college campus like I have, you see a Title 18 posted on above the urinal. admonishing you of how people shall be treated equally throughout the campus, regarding gender and race and ethnicity and all this, stuff. And yet, it doesn't apply to what Matt's explaining about infringing on everyone's rights.
How about everybody?
Everybody,
and that's the thing, Todd. What people need to understand is this is the new civil rights movement. They keep trying to bring it back and say that there are these other civil rights battles to fight. And yes, in minutia, does racism, sexism, bigotry exist? Sure, it does. Is it the same as the predator class oppressing all of us, no matter what color, creed, religion, where we live across the world at this point? That's the new civil rights movement. It's like, look, guys, if you don't have half a bill in the bank, you're not even on their radar. You're not even on their radar. Like, they don't care about you. You're disposable. Even somebody, as we're seeing now, like Fauci, seems like he might be disposable as well. I really hope people pay attention. And again, you can adopt this same attitude, these same things, tailor it to your county or your specifics. Again, we have a constitutional republic that's broken up by these states for a reason, because there are choices. And I think Matt nails it. You want to continue
Let's
with
rewind it about 15, 20 seconds
Sure.
where he's citing the Title 18. I just found it, Title 18 is beat over our heads by the progressive segregationist out there. And it's like, no, we're going to use Title 18 to protect everybody's right to go to freaking church.
Exactly. That is, believe me, that kills me. And I'm not a religious guy. It's just like, guys, you
Really?
realize how, like, most countries were founded when breaking away from tyranny against people's religions?
about
Not
the
just
church.
this one. Yeah, it's always.
Yeah.
Anyone from using law, statute, ordinance, or regulation to deprive any person of rights, privileges, or immunities secured by the protection of the Constitution. That's in the United States Code, Title 18. The Supreme Court has said no right is held more sacred or more carefully guarded by the common law than the right of every individual to possess control of his or her own person, free of all restraint or interference of others, unless by clear and unquestionable authority of law. And what we had was the governor declaring an emergency and perpetuating it.
So he brought up the word common law, and these guys sitting around there aren't even read in on this, and Governor Reynolds may not be either. There's one of the reasons, in my view, that the EMA, Emergency Management Agency, can get away with the stuff like we're declaring an emergency. It's under administrative law. And that can go down that whole rabbit hole of the straw man and all that many of your listeners are aware of. But nonetheless, let's let them tell us, no, Matt, this common law doesn't apply because we're actually operating under some administrative law here. Let's let them tell us that to our face. I don't think they will.
Without the rule of law, without legislative authority. And we in Scott County must concur before we participate in this again. No one should be mandated or coerced or forced into doing anything they don't want to do, particularly when we are long made aware of all the risks. Please take the time to read this. I want to see that Scott County exercises the home authority of a county independent of unneeded influence.
And let's talk about that, because he's about to talk about all that influence. Even as we sat there, they passed a $30+ million coronavirus relief bill. That, and with really, all you could do is look at, I looked it up online as I was there, and I'm like, well, what strings are going to be attached to $30+ million? And this is the kind of influence he talks about, and the bureaucracies that you just talked about. He'll specifically call out the health department. Let's be honest, the health department has been atrocious in all of this.
Well, did you hear the one of the supervisors prior to Matt speaking, lauding how they were the hometown all-stars?
Yeah, oh, bro.
Dude.
So you watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so what he's referring to is, prior to this, it's like the hoorah propaganda. That's actually the gentleman that came out and talked
Ken.
to us. To his credit, was it Ken Crokin, I believe?
Yeah.
I will remember your names, guys. I got
okay.
I got good
No.
recall. I'm just letting these guys know that I will remember your names. So, and I will be pestering you because, look, all of this stuff with heroes. Look, everybody has a job, and if you're thinking that this is like a hero type situation after 3 months into it with all the information that was
let's riff
out
on
there,
that one after break.
Okay,
here.
yeah.
I've got a good one there. For
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay, all right, absolutely.
But your point is that he's talking about home rule and about the undue influences on our autonomy.
Yeah.
And when I think about the funding that pours in, that has perpetuated this, you guys should be the ones that decide when do we meet and what happens, not the Scott County Board of Health. They work for you. And the federal money and the state money flowing to the Scott County Board of Health has wielded influence that I believe needs to be reined in when you guys say so, pursuant to public comments such as this. I want to see this enacted in Scott County so that the people concur with you and you concur with state mandates on what happens in Scott County, not just because the governor says so. The governor could be totally different next time. This federal government can mandate something. We need to concur. You need to ensure that Scott County is under your influence, not the influence of people that we can't look at and talk to and share our concerns with. You have that authority, and I want to make sure that you guys are empowered to defend that next time, not the Board of Health that we can't talk to. They don't ever respond to calls, inquiries, emails, or the governor deciding one day that what we did yesterday is no longer available to us. Just closed one day, off limits. That's why I'm here. This is what I want to see. I want to make sure the Bill of Rights applies at all times. That no public health disaster or even a non-public health disaster usurps those. It influences all the way down to public entities as well as private entities getting into our private lives about medical conditions, contact tracing, testing people who haven't consented to this for whatever reason, regardless of where we lie. It's all written in here. This is what we want adopted. And seeing it voted on as the Scott County Declaration to preserve the Scott County integrity as the great place that it is. If we don't take a stand, if we don't ensure that you run this county, somebody else will.
There it is. So I think he nailed it. I think he said, look, the Bill of Rights, it's in place at all times. It's not just a virus. It's any reason whatsoever. He called out the contact tracing for what it was. And people think that all this is going away after COVID. The infrastructure was built for a reason. When have they ever backed off, Todd?
Yeah. Let it play out just for a second here. Let's see.
Sure.
Or maybe you already cut it.
Well,
okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And that's it right there.
Yeah, and then they adjourned, if you will. And so things I wrote down here about what I love his presentation of the term "never again." The "never again" declaration, I think, has some legs in terms of positioning, and his statement of "we want you to concur with the state mandate" can at first sound like a position of weakness, but that was, in my view, very diplomatic of him to put it that way. We want you to concur, not like we want you to fight against the state. He's not being combative. He's like, no, there needs to be concurrence here. Now, these people, these county supervisors, and every supervisor across America were scared shitless when the pandemic was rolled out because it was the magic virus. It was the fear of the unknown. It was all the hype the media did. We've covered it ad nauseum. We know what went down, the falsification of all the information, and it just created fear. And so they just went with the flow because they were afraid. The thing that will give them courage and give them the fortitude to stand up and be autonomous will be if that room is filled with people. Matt planted a seed. You guys planted a seed when you were there. But they're not going to do that because 3 guys showed up at all.
Nope.
It's going to have to be the room filled and people all the way out the door. Mm-hmm. And cheering.
And it will be, I promise them. Because if this gets back to you guys, I just want to let you know, it will be. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, it will.
But it's going to happen. And it's probably going to happen well before September happens.
It's going to have to.
Exactly. It's going to happen well before any kind of flu season hits or any excuse for a variant hits. So get ready. And get ready to be accountable. And quite frankly, if you are going to concur with some kind of authoritarian, draconian mandates, which we saw over and over and over again, you better get educated on the facts because, again, there was so much misinformation. There is so much right now narrative control that, in fact, Todd, we are going to end this portion of the broadcast on YouTube so we can talk about the other issues.
Can you scroll down on the reader site real quick, though?
Yeah,
please?
absolutely.
On the far right page, on the far right side of our website, I'd like to show your viewers. If you go down there, you'll see on the right, keep going a little bit there, keep going. There it says COVID Curious. Click on that, please. So I would encourage your listeners and viewers to go to that section, and that's all the tags of all the articles we've covered about COVID. And we have an international readership with our COVID coverage, and we've published a lot of things that are extremely useful and a great distillation. And I think that we put it in very good terms that you can use with your fellow family and friends to try and get some sense of common sense instilled. So I encourage you to check out those sections there.
And common sense and discernment is something that a lot of people are lacking because they refuse to actually go outside of the narratives, go outside of the norm, and they just obey. So this is what we're going to do, guys, like we do so many other times. Make sure you're thumbing this up, subscribed, and shared. This is the conversation we're about to have. Solutions that you can talk to with these people based in evidence that we can't talk about on YouTube. So go make the free Rockfin account if you don't already have one. We're going to continue this stream there. The links down below are how to financially support me. But the way to do it is at least make that free Rockfin account, because I don't know I'm going to have a YouTube page. I was supposed to be off for another week and a half. I got my YouTube page back Saturday night, a few hours after, basically pleading my case for a video that they took down from May of last year. Over a year old, and they said it was a scam, deceptive practices, and then they came back after I challenged and said, no, that's not true, it still goes against our medical policies, but we'll take the strike away and give you your channel back. So we never know if we're going to be on.
Medical policies?
Oh, dude, my medical, we'll get there, because we're about to show you some possible, I'm not even going to say it.
All right.
I love you guys. Thank you for joining me on YouTube. Me and McGreevy are about to go hog wild.